Welcome, everyone. Hello again. This is Mrs. Marple. I just thought I would go ahead and get the nose started for you all. I know that you're very, very anxious to try to get this done. And this is not actually due until Friday. Just look at your Google Classroom and see when the dates are. And I do want you to put your good picture beside this one when you take a picture for me and send it to the email. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go ahead and work on this nose area. So let's go ahead and take our graphite. As I've taught you before, here's my graphite. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit on my paper towel. Don't forget to wipe a little bit of it away. We want to test that strength first before we lay it down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this highlighted area. Okay, yesterday we started to work on the bag. And I know I shutted my paper there. So what we're going to do is right through this right area, we're going to begin. So as we continue down through the eyebrow, you're going to start about right below the eyebrow. We're going to do some very, very soft ovals. And when we do these soft ovals, well, this is a very, very, very light area. I'll load a little bit more up. I'm just going to apply this just really slightly. Okay, to go down to the ball of the nose. This is called the ball of the nose. We're now going to be coming over here to this area, and we're going to load up the paper towel again, and we will begin on this area just to try not to do it too much. Okay, so we're going to bring this out from here. And again, we're just going to do a little bit of the nose today. We're not going to go crazy on it. Yesterday, we worked through this area just to darken that up a little bit. So our areas are going to start, as you see, to get a little darker. Now, if I get too close, and these are ovals again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to pop it with my eraser, okay? So as you can see, we're going to start to close in on this a little bit, and it's going to go right through the middle of her nose. So before we do any more, and that was just a very light shade, okay, to shape it. And you want to make sure, first of all, that your nose is correct. And the way to do that is by siding it up. So the end of your nose here, when you look at the end of that, that is just on the inside of her tear duct. So you want to make sure again that your nose, when you side it up on the end down here, is just on the inside of her tear duct here. And then as you come over to this area, we are lining it up over here on the left, we're going to see that she has a little bit of a gap between her eye and the pencil. So again, when you lay this down, we've got a bit of a gap. Okay, this is going to be right straight through the middle, and that's where her white area is going to be the highlight. So let's look at this shape. We're going to go ahead and grab our tortillon or a blending stump that's been slightly used with lots of love. We're going to pull it out a little bit, pull your pencil out slightly so we can bend this. We're going to add a little bit of graphite on here. You can test it again on your paper. Now I'm going to come over to here where the area of this little edge of the ball of the nose is. See how it's a little darker here. Okay. At the same time, and I want to be careful because I don't want to leave that line. Remember, in art, you never want to leave a pencil line. So I might pop it. I can still see it, but I might pop that a little bit more. Okay, I can still see it. So what I'm going to do is I can use a little bit more of the tip this time, just to kind of create a little bit slight area of a contour. Now I want to ask you a question. When you look at her face right here, what's lighter, face or nose? And that's what you need to ask yourself each time. Well, the face is lighter here. So right at that crease, we're going to add a little bit of a shade and go on the inside here, okay, towards the bottom. All right. So I understand we have a little bit of a highlight. That's no big deal. We can even make that a little bit lighter or darker if we need to, okay? We don't want to make it look like it's outlined big time through here. But I didn't add all of my shade in here either. So let me add a little bit more of that shadow, and then we'll take it out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is with circles, I'm just going to darken this area in, and I'm just going to blend it out a little bit. So we're coming out to her face. This area, which is underneath her bag, is going to be highlighted. And that's what this is. So if I go through it, if I struck through it, that's okay. I can always add it back in. And how you do that is you would take your gray eraser, and we are going to pop this. We're just going to kind of walk it. See, we have our little eraser. We're just going to kind of walk it in like this. Okay, it just takes a little bit of that bite out. We don't want to totally take it out, do we? Right here is very, very white. Okay, that is whiter. You have a tiny little white area right here. And then right where that crease is, sure, that could be a little whiter. And then here could start to fade out a little bit. So you see how soft that became? Okay, now down here I did that a little bit too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that a little bit, and we're going to reshape it here in a second. Okay. Do you remember the blending stump that we used the other day and I had you create, and it was very, very tight? Well, this is the one that we're going to be using right now. So it's not the one that's been loved on too much. It's just going to be one that's a little bit lighter, has a little bit of graphite on it. I don't really want a whole lot. I'm going to kind of wipe that off. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to soften that area. Do you see what I did there? Just going to soften that, and I'm just going to kind of strike through this a little bit so it's not as white as what you've got over here. Remember, this is a number 1, right? Number 1 is the whitest up through here. We're going to strike through right here where there's a white ball, and there's a tiny little strike through, and then it gets to be white up through here. But this is darker, okay? That's dramatically darker. And so is this over here. So I'm going to be shaping my nostril area. That's where we are. Again, if I fill it in a little bit too much, I can pop it out. One thing I would like for you to do, and we talked about when we did the nostrils before together, it's not a very large area. When you look at your nostril, it's just the top that's dark, isn't it? And a little bit at the bottom. We're just going to kind of blend this out a little bit, and it's going to get skinnier and skinnier and taper. And again, I can take that blending stump. I'm going to blend it down a little bit just to make that softer. Now, another noticeably darker area that you have besides the nostril is this line, isn't it? So let's find that line. And right here, I'm just going to make it very soft, not big at all. I'm going to end it at an angle. See that angle right there? And it's like a little sliver up there. Now, if you notice between here and here, what's different? Up along this dark line, isn't there a highlight? Right up against it. So with your pink eraser, you're just going to highlight that just a little bit. I'm just going to bring it up just a tad. There. See how much better that's looking already? And we have a little bit of a dark area underneath here. That's good. Okay, now let's go over to the other side, because the other side's a little tricky. There really isn't much of a nostril that's showing. It has a little bit of an arc in it. It's not as dark as the other one. But what is noticeable through here is the area above it, which is the shadow. That shadow, I'm going to be taking this paper towel that we did yesterday, is that nice sharp one, and right where this line is, see how I disguise that? I'm just going to add this down through the bottom of the nose, and very carefully I'm going to wipe this graphite off. Do you remember how I showed you to do it? You're going to take it over to your paper towel. Take your paper towel to your paper, excuse me, and you're just going to wipe it off. Just wipe it off a little bit. Now what I'd like for you to do is softly, now that that's clean, we're going to blend this up here a little bit more. Look how soft that becomes. This little edge can stay hard. That's not a problem. But we're going to soften this up a little bit. Okay. Now, if you notice, I still have this really large area, right? And that's not supposed to stay totally white. So let's get that paper towel that's got a lot of love on it. That's the old one. And I'm going to just put a little bit of graphite on it. I'm going to see if I have any on here right now. And I do have some on there. So I'm going to start to find where that white ball is, and I'm going to build some graphite. Look at that. I'm creating a white ball right there. Okay? Now, if the ball is not white, even when you go to erase it, okay, if you don't see that it's noticeably whiter, what needs to happen? Well, we need to darken the area around it, but we want to be really, really careful. I'm going to make this a little thicker through here. I loaded up my paper towel. I'm going to make that a little darker, and I'm going to just slowly start to bring this in. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do the same thing right at the top here. Okay, so now I can start to see a little bit of that white area happening. And it looks as if I can strike through it. I'm just going to pat through the center because it doesn't look like it's totally that large, right? So I'm just going to kind of narrow it down a little bit. My area right here, and you want to be careful, I did check your noses before we left, but this little area where it flares out, we've got a little bit of a dark area, don't we? So this little bit of a dark area right here, I'm going to switch back to my thinner blending stump that we created. And I keep breaking my pencil leads, but he's on the inside here. So I've got this tiny little crease that I have going on here, and I want to shape it a little better. The outside is a little darker. And let's ask ourselves a question. What's lighter and what's darker? Outside or nostril? Outside. So I'm going to just lighten this a little bit because I do want to make sure I can darken the inside and make that well known, that is dramatically darker than the outside of this nostril. But we don't want it to look like a number one either, right? That's not a pure white. We want to soften that a little bit. So first, I'm not really in love with my shape. And we always said that we can always change things if we need to. So I'm just going to pop this a little bit more. Now I can go through and just kind of pat this just to dirty it up a little bit, not a lot. And now I'm going to start to work on softening this area because I don't want it to be a hard line. You can have somewhat of a line, but not a real hard one. Okay. Let's darken this up a little bit more so we start to get the shaft that looks as if it's going to be a white. Okay. So right up from here, when we come down from her eyebrow, it's like a gradual line. That's the shaft of her nose. Do you see how it looks like it's starting to come together now? Okay. Now her nose still looks a little wide. I need to keep slowing and closing that gap. Okay, very, very, very light ovals. And I'm going to lighten that a little bit. Okay, so now we're closing in on it a little bit. All right. Now, let's take this in and right down the middle. I want to make sure we have a nice white area through here. I don't want to go all the way up into that area that we worked so hard to make that darker. So I could always take my paper towel. Remember, we can always blend that out a little bit. We don't want to overwork it. And right now, this area is a little straight. So I'm going to pop this a little bit more to make that look a little bit more natural. See what I did? I just kind of took that out a little bit. And around this, when you look at where the white area is, here's the white area and here's a white area. It's towards the top part of where her nostrils are, just a little bit below that. Now, if it starts to get a little bit too white, all you have to do is narrow it down just slightly. Okay? Just going to take that in a little bit. Make sure this little ball does come out a little bit more. I do want to make sure up here that my crease is correct. It looks like it might be off a little bit. So I'm going to retweak this a little bit. It's never too late. What did I do? I brought it up a little bit more and I'm going to erase this out just slightly. because I want that area to be a little darker. So this is going to be my new line, but I still do need to dirty this up a little bit, don't I? Okay, and here's that white part. So here's that dark line. I might want to darken it just a little bit more right here. So see how it comes down? Just comes down a little ways. Well, I do miss you all terribly. I know this isn't the ideal situation, everyone, but we're trying to get through, aren't we? We are. And teachers have struggles just like you do, but we're not going to let it get us down because we love you dearly. And the big picture is you. You are what matter. And I want you to know that. And if this is getting too much of a struggle for you, I want you to write me. I want you to let me know how you're doing. I've had a lot of students ask me about finishing this. And we're almost done. I'm going to move the camera down just a little smidge. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to take care of the bottom here, and then we'll be done for the day. So you can see that as I was talking with you, I was looking at where my number ones are, right? And I was trying to shade around it, trying to figure out again, go backwards, what's a number 10? What looks like it's a number, where's a number 5? What's neutral? So number 5 would probably be about this area. This is a little bit darker than that. This is darker than what you're going to have over here. This is like a number 2 going into a 3 over towards the area that we haven't gotten to, which is going to be close to an 8. So that's later on coming. So let's go back down through here, talking about our number system. So if this is a 1, that's like a half, and there's some 1s and some halves in here. This is a little darker. We just went through this area and we said, well, the nostril is a little darker, correct? This is even darker than the other side. What about the bottom? Look at this edge right here. Oh my goodness, look how dark that is. And then we're going to diffuse it out. Okay, so it's okay if you do a little bit of a line there. Don't go crazy on it, but diffused out. Let it taper out. This is going to be a very soft area. Down here, I know I have a pencil line, and we talked about not leaving any pencil lines, right? So let's clean that out with your eraser. Make that nice and light. Now, what can I do with this? Well, I want you to look at this and talk yourself through it. What number is it? First of all, which is darker, nose or the face? Well, the tip of the nose here, yes, you are correct. It is a little darker. But then the face is dark also. And it's what we call a cast shadow. Remember, a cast shadow is something that you have on the ground. Like, for instance, the cast shadow of my pencil is right here. So we're looking at the cast shadow from the nose onto the face. She does have one under here. But she also has a very slim highlight in between, and that's what's going to separate it. And we're going to let it just diffuse down into her area between the nose and the lips. So let's go ahead and take your very sharp blending stump, because we want to be very careful through here. It's a slight tapering. Do you see how that is? It's nice and dark, but then I'm going to diffuse it. Just let it come out a little bit. We're not going to do a whole lot with this today, because I think this is enough. This is on top of the nose. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow underneath. I'm going to reload on my paper towel. Do a little bit of a shadow, and it kind of comes down just a little bit through here. And we'll let that fade out. And all we need to do right now are two things. Right above this right nostril, there's a little bit more of a shadow. Okay, so I'm trying to load up here on my pencil. Little bit more of a shadow here. And it comes up to the ridge. It's kind of like what we were doing on the other side. I'm going to strike through, just pat through this a little bit so it's not quite as white. We talked about having this little bit of a shadow underneath the nose. And just diffuse this, kind of let a little bit of a white area at the sweetheart part of the lips show. They're ovals. Don't forget to shade with ovals. All right, now let's look to see what we need. Is this dark enough? Again, question, answer yourself. The nostril kind of gets hidden, doesn't it? It kind of blends in to this area right here. It kind of gets a little darker. We know for sure that is so close to a 9.5, possibly a 10 here. And then it fades out. See, it's going to fade out. So I'm drawing this with my pencil so you can see this. Right up in this area, then we're going to blend it all together. Right here, it's a little darker. Why didn't I do this at the beginning? Because I was afraid you make it too dark. So after we do our little bit of some shading, then we go through and we just refine a little bit. For instance, we want to find our shape up here. So I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow there to here. Let's look at the other side. What do I need here? Well, we started this little area. What about the outside? Well, I want to be a little bit careful with that because I don't want to overdo that part. As long as I have this little section and I'm going to blend it out, I think I'm going to be okay. And right here, we're going to have that little separation of that highlight between the two. Now, all that's left to do is to blend it. Skinny, skinny. As skinny as you can make your blending stump. And very carefully, let's go through and blend. We don't want to smash it all together. The beauty about this is, everyone, is at the beginning of the year, you got to practice. My goodness, you should be experts at this now, right? You're going to be better at this than I am. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of beautiful drawings coming my way. Again, we're going to blend up through here on this little corner. If it's too dark, I can always pop it. I'd rather it be too light than too dark, right? Well, even though I took this out a little bit, I'm going to turn it so it's a clean paper towel here. I'm going to take my pencil, my gray eraser. It's kind of hard to talk and do this at the same time, isn't it? And we're going to do a little bit of that highlight area underneath here. It kind of gets lost. And then I'm going to bring up this shadow just a little more. There we go. Bring that up a little more. Does everyone see right where my fingernail is? There's a highlight right here. Look at this little highlight. So we can always go through and we can pop out those highlights when we need to. Okay, now, remember that we don't want the edges to show. It's just like leaving a pencil line. We don't want it to be too white. So what we can do is we can just go through and do a little bit more of a pop with that. And looking at this on the screen, I can see that's a little too dark. And it's a little bit too much like a point. What I need to do is I need to blend that out. So again, everyone, write to me. Let me know how you're doing, how you think you did, and what do you think you could have done better on it. Excuse me. And then I will be answering you in an email. So for today, I think this is enough. This should hopefully hold us through for a little while. And I can't wait to see your noses. Again, practice, practice, practice. Take your training of what you've done in the past and try to apply it to this nose. And keep looking at your little picture. Go through the 9 self-help techniques that I showed you. I'm going to keep refining mine a little bit. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. And I want you all, like I said, to practice on this. Take a picture. See what you could do better. If you need to pop it out a little bit, if it's a little too dark, pop it with your gray eraser. Write to me. Let me know your concerns. Let me know what your questions are. That's what I'm here for, right? It's about you. It's about making sure that you're happy with what you're doing. And if you have questions, that's what we are here for. Okay? Well, you all take care of yourselves. And I'm going to keep darkening this a little bit more, going back and forth, back and forth. And I don't want to take up all of your time because I know this video is going to go a pretty hefty amount of time. And I don't want to make it too late for you. So again, do self-check, take pictures of it, see what you need to do. Just keep refining, sculpting, and yours are going to look fabulous. I guarantee you. All right, everyone. Well, just remember, if you have any questions, email me. Clean off your blending stump when you need to reblend. Make sure you have a clean one so you don't keep using a dirty one. And just have fun with it. All right, it's all about trying. That's all I ask, right? Is that you tried. And again, I hope things are going well with you. And this is all new to all of us. And I love you guys dearly. Truly, truly, I do. And I wish the situation was a little different. But unfortunately, we just have to go through this right now. Okay? All right, guys. Take care, and I will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.